All right, so Akeya Kester, welcome to Green Pill. So, folks listening, Akeya is an LPC, so licensed professional counselor therapist outside of Pittsburgh, PA. She's seeing clients in Florida as well. Her focus, while she's worked in the home with moms and babies, she's worked at rehabs, crisis centers, she's worked in private practice. So, she has so much experience that she's bringing to the table. And a few of her focuses, which we'll touch on, are trauma, depression, anxiety, but really just a holistic view of the person. And her and I really connected on the fact that somebody needs enrichment and support across all areas of their life so that they don't fall into substance abuse or other really tough situations. And so, with her clients, many of whom are from the black community where she is and in PA generally, she talks a lot about that. And Akeya, I probably can't do you justice. Welcome to Green Pill. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and could you tell us like what got you into therapy? I think folks like what caught my attention. You studied zoology for a bit in college, and that really cracked me up. And apparently, non-human primates and animals were not the animal you wanted to study. So how'd you get into therapy?
Okay, yes. So initially, my major in undergrad was biology, and I had hopes in becoming a neurosurgeon. However, there was a zoology class that I just could not comprehend. And so I said, this may not be it. And so I knew that I wanted to work with people. I just wasn't sure in in what aspect. And
Mm-hmm.
so I explored various other areas and I met with my advisor and she suggested going for liberal studies. That way I could dive into various subjects
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't so concentrated. And so I tapped into criminal justice, sociology, and psychology really stuck with me. Learning about human behaviors and the way we think was really intriguing. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that we're not as unique as we think we are, or else how would we be able to create all these modalities and therapeutic approaches and things like that. So that's what initially drove me.
So the uniqueness of actually the lack of uniqueness among people really caught your attention. Was that something you had noticed growing up, like trends and patterns in people? Did it come to you? When did it start occurring to you? And it really must have caught your interest because you made it your career.
So it wasn't something that I really recognized until I learned about it. And then naturally, I reflected on my own childhood and upbringing and the things that I was around. And in the neighborhood that I grew up in, a lot of people had lost their jobs who worked in the steel mills and had unfortunately resorted to substance abuse to cope. People were dealing with unemployment. And so there was a rise in a lot of trauma for these families. And so I hadn't realized that obviously as a child, but learning about generational traumas and things like that was something that I was able to become full circle, which then later prompted me to work with families because I've seen my friends and their families go through similar situations. And so I wanted to see where it all began, which moved me to working with mothers and babies and getting to the beginning of it all, where it starts.
And so your first job out of school, you could say, or maybe I think you maybe doing it during school would be working with mothers and babies. And so you got into that. And what did you learn from seeing mothers and babies? Cool.
Okay, so my role in the home was to help facilitate social and emotional interactions between the caregiver and the baby. And I worked with various populations. I worked with refugees. A lot of the families I worked with were in low income neighborhoods. And what I noticed with this particular job was that a lot of the families, whether it was trauma from being in refugee camps or just the traumas that come with living in low income neighborhoods with crime and food deserts, that there were a lot of mental health concerns that were presenting. However, a lot of these families did not have access to mental health treatment, whether it was due to lack of childcare, lack of transportation, the stigmas associated with mental health. And it gave me an idea of where it
So
starts.
it really took you to the core of Yeah, where it starts, because even a sibling or a dad coming home or a mom coming home under the influence, there's
Hmm.
nowhere. If there's one car in the family, if so, how are they going to get to mental health treatment? Do they know about it? Is it too far away? Is it even
Right.
covered? Are they insured? So what you're saying is that you saw that all these boxes weren't checked for somebody to have the support that you were able to do in your role. And so you went from there and you got to see the on the ground level with moms and babies. And then you went next. Tell us where you went next, like your kind of subsequent roles, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So after I worked in child development for approximately 5 years, I then
Nice.
transitioned to working at a rehab because I wanted to learn more about substance abuse. And I had already saw how it impacted the family, but I wanted to focus more on the individual. And so
Mm-hmm.
within that, I was able to learn more about traumas and in some of the generational traumas that again presented itself that created this dynamic of chaos within the family system. People were learning how to cope with whatever they had going on. And we all have coping skills, right? It's just some are not necessarily healthy. So, from that point, I also noticed that with substance abuse also came other mental health disorders. And there was some psychosis. There
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of anxiety and depression and people learning to cope and manage with those things with the use of substances.
Mm-hmm.
So after I worked at the rehab, I then transitioned into a crisis center where I worked with a number of populations from homelessness to substance abuse, psychosis. And so it in the crisis center, it all came full circle, seeing all the factors and barriers that contribute to unmanaged mental health illnesses or that can lead to homelessness or substance abuse. And so it was then where I said, okay, now I'm ready to take all that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
and create my practice.
And the practice is a key to peace today, and it borrows from your obviously your education, your work with mothers and children. Then you're working a rehab, then you're working a crisis center. So you've seen some of, if I can be so frank, the toughest cases. And you've seen how the thread gets pulled all the way from childhood, tough neighborhood, immigration, lack of resources, all the way through to adulthood and coping mechanisms. And so I think
Mhm.
you've probably identified a bunch of things that would sort of mitigate, ameliorate, support people who would otherwise fall into these cracks, which are really rough, like homelessness, substance abuse as a coping mechanism, psychosis because something's unmanaged and there's no way to deal. Who do you see
Mhm.
today? And then we can maybe get into some of the tools that folks can take home with them and that you use with your clients today after all that experience.
So today I work with adolescents to late adulthood, and we focus on anxiety, depression, career counseling, and cultural issues.
Nice. And those folks, I guess you have different tools for different people. What strikes me, what's interesting maybe for people listening, is that you worked with some people who are really struggling from different things. What are some baseline pieces that you give to somebody coming in with anxiety, for example? Like, how do you evaluate it? What's your method? I know you told me a bit when we first spoke, which was cool. I liked how you did it. You had a session format, actually.
Hmm. And so initially, the way the first session begins is an introduction about myself. And then I explain that I'm like a GPS. I think it's very important for my clients to know that they are in control in this space and that I work for them. Sometimes there can be a sense of fear or a feeling of insecurity because someone has letters after their name. And I want my clients to know that one, I am also human. And two, in any other place in their life where they may feel out of control, in our space, they have the most control. And
Mm-hmm.
so if our conversation is talking about childhood experiences and it navigates and transitions to their favorite pizza, I allow it to navigate and transition to their
Mm-hmm.
favorite pizza because sometimes we just need a break from what we're talking about. And after the initial session, the second session begins with what was your win for the week. And I like to do that because with all that we have going on in our life, because life is life and sometimes, right? And we can't
Mhm.
always control the things that pop up. We may
Mhm.
feel like our whole life is out of control. And so
Mhm.
no matter what the win is, a win is a win. Whether that win is today I woke up and I took a shower. If you have been
Mhm.
struggling to get out of bed, that is a win. A
Mhm.
win could be on a grander scale as a promotion. But I
Mhm.
want us to begin our session with a win. And then our session ends with a wrap up. What did you get out of today's session? And I do
Mhm.
that because I want to make sure that myself and my client are on the same page, as well as that they're getting what they're coming for. It's
Mhm.
very important to me to make sure that my clients are receiving the care that they're looking for. As far as assessing and diagnosing, each client gets receives a treatment plan, and that treatment plan
Mhm.
is specific to target their anxiety or depression. And it's more about challenging thoughts and establishing coping skills. Sometimes in the treatment plan, it's establishing a healthier support network. We may not
Mhm.
recognize that we may not have the best support system. So finding ways to establish a healthier support network. And so with that, they're able to more so hone in on what their barriers are, what their challenges are. And my clients also receive homework. It's
Homework.
not graded, but I encourage them to practice these things not only in session, but outside of session. Apply these tools that we're learning in our session to real life. And it provides for a more successful outcome.
Mhm. And I think I remember you saying, like, when it comes to homework, that in your session, sometimes, I don't know if it was breath work or just like mindfulness, or there's something that you did in your
Mhm.
session that you also had people carry over. Could you tell me a bit about that?
So we do some mindfulness. We'll do deep breathing exercises.
That's right.
There is a mindfulness exercise that I truly love and suggest to most clients who struggle with anxiety.
So,
Oftentimes,
yeah.
with anxiety, uh, we're fearful of the past, or we're focusing on the past, I'm sorry, and fearful
Hmm.
of the future. And it's very rare
Right.
that we're staying in the present. So I encourage them to get an orange, and with the orange allows us to utilize our five senses.
Mm.
So with the texture of the orange, you can focus on that. You can focus on the color. When you peel the orange, you can hear the peeling, you can smell it, you can taste it. And so if we allow ourselves just a moment to step out of whatever's going on around us, to focus back in on what's in front of us, it can help to slow our heart rate, which then can help to slow our thoughts and recenter us again.
Yeah, it's really cool. I haven't heard that one. I was just doing some mindfulness the other day and did something similar where I was walking down the street and I really tried to feel my fingers and I tried to smell what I smelled and I tried to see what I
Mhm.
see. And I was like, what taste do I have in my mouth? I think I brushed my teeth. So that is that. And I like the orange one. And so you're encouraging this feeling of control during your sessions. You're encouraging a win and small wins, which, like, nowadays with behavioral science, we humans really respond to incremental wins we hear. And you're also encouraging a wrap up. So making sure people are held accountable. And so those skills, which are psychological in nature, how they feel in the moment, you're also giving homework. And so when it comes to the homework, it might be call a friend, call us somebody who was a support for you. I can imagine that would be
Mhm.
one. Do you give any, like, other homework that comes to mind? The mindfulness piece might be another one. Any
Mhm.
others?
There are handouts that
Okay.
I give my clients, and I also let them know if you can get to it, great. If you can't, we'll
Mm-hmm.
just do it in session. But some of the handouts are different prompts and scenarios. So for someone who may struggle with boundary setting, I'll give
Mm-hmm.
them a list of scenarios in which they would have to practice assertive communication. For someone who struggles with maybe distorted thoughts, we all struggle with distorted thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
right? We jump to conclusions, or
Mm-hmm.
we may think we're mind readers and we know what someone's thinking. So I'll give them a handout describing the different various forms of distorted thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
encourage them to identify the ones that kind of stick out to them. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of education also that
Mm-hmm.
comes with therapy. It's called psychoeducation. It's not just
Psychoeducation.
about, hey, I don't feel good today, make me feel better. No, it's why don't I feel good? Where's this coming from? Is it coming from my thoughts? Is it coming from past experiences? Is it coming from somewhere else, my environment? where is this coming from? And then I always tell my clients, you don't know what you don't know. When
Mm-hmm.
you learn something, you have an opportunity to change. We can choose not to change, but you
Mm-hmm.
have an opportunity to. And I think
Mm-hmm.
with that educational piece, when we're able to put a term to what we're doing as far as
Mm-hmm.
behavior or what we're thinking, it helps things settle in a little bit more, and it creates more of a positive change and motivation for change.
Mm-hmm. So you term it and you give them some theory and some structure and say, hey, you're not the only one experiencing this, right? There's a
Mhm.
term for this. Many people experience this. I like how, just from my coaching background, I like how you give some work and some completion and you get the dopamine hit from them. They get it from actually doing something, coming back to you, getting patted on the back, whatever it is. So there's a lot of structure to your sessions and to your treatment, which is really cool. I talk to a lot of therapists and I don't hear that often about handouts and stuff. Having been in grief therapy, I remember when I was like 19 or 20, we had a group session and like group sessions every week, and there were handouts that we would do in the session, but I think we would do them outside. And I found them really helpful too, because they were really good prompts to think about, what am I experiencing? When does this come up? And so you're giving people some homework, but it's not compulsory. You're giving them some mental homework. So it could be the mindfulness, it could be
Mhm.
calling a friend or building a network. And then do you give them any, this may be a question that you probably expected from me, but do you give them any physical homework? Sleep, exercise, food, diet changes, that kind of
Yes.
stuff?
Yes.
Hmm. Tell us a little bit about that
Yes.
if you don't
So
mind.
sleep hygiene is definitely one, or poor sleep hygiene is definitely something that can contribute to anxiety and depression. If we're
Hmm.
not getting enough rest, the next day it's not setting us up. Again, we're looking for success, right? And so
Hmm.
if we're not getting the proper sleep because we're binge watching TV, or we're not giving our brain a chance to rest. And sometimes we think just because we're lying down that we're resting, but we're
Hmm.
really not. Our brain is still being stimulated. So I encourage people to put on white noise,
Hmm.
as how much your screen time is, and even talking with their doctor. I encourage my clients to also speak with their PCP to get blood work done to make sure that there's nothing
Nice.
going on physically. And there's much conversation about how are we eating.
Hmm.
Some people aren't eating, especially with work these
Hmm.
days. A lot of people are working from home, and studies are showing that people are actually working more now that they're working
Hmm.
from home.
Really?
And so that I'm noticing with some of my clients, I'm working from home, but I'm not eating. And that's because they're just working, working. And so we create a plan
Hmm.
to manage things. I'm going to log off of my computer at 6 o'clock. I'm going
Hmm.
to turn my TV off at 9 o'clock. And creating a system, a routine. Routines are very important. Creating a
Hmm.
routine for us to be able to wake up the next day feeling refreshed and ready to go.
I love it. I got comments on each of those, but like sleep hygiene is really big. And I know there's some like app blockers out there, like freedom.to I like, and one sec where it will make you take a deep breath before you open the app and it'll make you pause for 5 seconds. I think it saved me like 3 days this year. Like 30% of the time I open Instagram, I still go open it, but the other 70% of the time I actually let it go. I just added it to my email too.
Mhm.
And like you said, with the TV, it's a little trickier to block, but by giving another stimulus like white noise, I like that because it does give that peace and that sound. Because sometimes being alone with your own thoughts, I think we all experience, can be tough
Mhm.
depending on the time of day or year or what's going on. And I like the blood tests. The work from home, I didn't know people were working more and not eating, but it makes sense. And boundaries come to work too. Like some bosses will push you to work to 7 or 8, even though you're being compensated only till 5. And you can
Right.
set boundaries and say, hey, I work till 6. If you'd like to pay me overtime or if you'd like to give me more salary, or let's have that discussion. So I think having someone like you in their corner is super key. And I also think the plan for being refreshed is really important too, because if you can wake up with good energy, it's a long way to combating anxiety and depression, which might still happen. But if you can get 5% better, 10% better, 20% less anxiety, like one day less a week that's anxious, could mean a lot to somebody. So I love what you're doing there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything to add on that front, on the behavioral front, or?
Yes. So what I try to remind people is that anxiety is something that we may struggle with, but it's not who we are. Same with
Mm,
depression. It's not about getting rid of it. We all have
Mm-hmm.
moments where we're feeling a little anxious, feeling a little uneasy. My role is to teach you how to manage it. We want
Mm-hmm.
to find ways where we're experiencing it less frequently, or the duration isn't lasting as long.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we want to get to. So when you were saying 20% less, yes, that's where we want to work towards. And when clients see that they're completing these goals,
Mm-hmm.
it's again giving them that power back, that I am in control. I can do these
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that we all have the capability of making the best decisions for ourselves. Sometimes,
Me
due
too.
to our environment or society, we don't always have that push or motivation or even confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with therapy, showing you that yes, you can advocate for yourself. Yes, you can say no. Yes, you can focus on the present and not worry about the future just yet. Being that person on the side saying you can do this really is what I've noticed a huge benefit for a lot of people, because let's be honest, you're coming to a complete stranger,
Mm-hmm.
just being completely open and vulnerable, right? And that takes a lot of courage. And sometimes
Yes.
you have to remind people that you are very brave for doing this. We don't always feel like we can be open and vulnerable with the people closest to us.
So I never hear that, but you're so right. I always think of therapy as so normal because I had it growing up, and but like for a lot of people, it's this is just someone I don't know, and I'm about to spill all my guts. And you talk about some cultural differences there across many different cultures, and I'd like to, if we don't mind, to wrap up by saying thank you again for coming on. I'd love to hear like where do you see the next 5-10 years for your practice going, and is there anything else that's really exciting for you in the mental health field and the physical health field? Anything that's exciting in your personal life that you're seeing that's like really interesting for you that folks might touch on, and otherwise we'll tell people where to find you too.
So I am actually doing a lot of workshops and conferences now. And the most recent workshop I just did was for a festival. It's actually one of the number one festivals here in America. And I discussed occupational burnout for business owners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, During the pandemic, we focused a lot on the staff and how this was
Mm-hmm.
impacting consumers and staff. And I don't think there was much discussion on small business owners and how this impacted them. And so we're seeing, like I said, people working a lot, experiencing more burnout working from home, even though this, because home is no longer a comfortable setting, it is now work as well. And so I addressed that. I had a workshop addressing the idea of the strong Black woman and educating Black women on how it's actually a response to trauma. And so I am diving into speaking in other ways to more people, to educate more people of various populations on just the effects of trauma and anxiety and depression and how it shows up. It doesn't just show up when we're at home or when we just
Mm-hmm.
feel triggered. It shows up at work. It shows up in our relationships. It shows up in so many various ways. And so I think the more people who are aware of this, the better off I think society will be, as far as how we compare ourselves to others because of social media, or
Mm-hmm.
how we're choosing to manage our mental health. I think we only see it as one sided sometimes, as, oh, it's just this. And it's not. It really trickles into other areas of our life that we may not always be aware of.
I think it's a really good mission that you're out there spreading the word about that. And it seems just so close to your heart that you just want to get out there, whether it's paid, unpaid, whoever it is, you're telling that, hey, you can make the best decisions for yourself, and you know what's inside. And anxiety, depression are just something that comes up, and it's natural and it's normal. And in different contexts with Black women, I saw you had, instead of strong Black women, you had soft Black women, which is a nice play on words. I like that. I'm sure that caught the attention of folks. So I think the career stuff is interesting too that you're doing, and I obviously echo with your holistic perspective, and I hope a lot of folks out there also echo with that. So with that said, as you're doing more speaking, as you're spreading the message more, where can people find you and Akita Peace?
So, Akita Peace is located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I have a physical location in Braddock,
Mm-hmm.
which is a borough in Pittsburgh, as well as virtual sessions. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or you could visit my website, akitapeace.com.
Perfect. We're going to link all those. Akeya, Kester, thank you so much. This was awesome. And thanks for coming on. All right. Bye.